I'm Janet Jaffke, and I'm a fiber and mixed media artist. I was born and raised in a blue-collar neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. I now live in a small farm town in Alsace, France that sits on the border of Germany and Switzerland, very close to Basel. I attended the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Art that focused on textile design and fiber art. Once I graduated from school, I started a small cottage industry that produced limited edition hand-painted and printed fabrics. I created a line of clothing that was sold in boutiques and galleries throughout the country, and I also made home accessories and custom fabrics for interiors. I ran my small business for over a decade until the start of the tech boom. I was recruited by a government grant and was trained to use my design and management skills in the field of multimedia, web design, and digital communications. I remained creative in that field for several years until 2013 when I moved to France. After arriving in France, I wanted to produce more personal work that was not driven by sales or the marketplace. At that time, I was fairly isolated from other creatives, so I participated in the debut of Nicholas Wilton's online Creative Visionary program. The course was a wealth of information and techniques for working in abstract collage and mixed media, and I enjoyed the freedom of exploration not tied to outcome. In order to focus and concentrate my efforts, in February 2020, I began what was supposed to be a 3-month residency in Florence, Italy. 2 weeks after my arrival in Florence, the coronavirus pandemic hit Italy. My 3-month residency turned into 5 months, but I was in the perfect place and time to take a deep dive. During this historical time, I was particularly struck with the overwhelming grief and sadness that permeated the air. The sounds of ambulance, sirens, and church bells were constant. It was during this period when crosses first began to surface in my work. My intention for the cross was not to be a religious symbol, but one of hope and comfort, more of a symbol of help and aid. It was also at this time when I became familiar with the work of Alberto Burri. Burri was a medical officer in the Italian army and a post-war artist who considered himself a polymaterialist. He worked abstractly with raw materials, including burlap. Studying his work, I was struck by how he was able to communicate so much feeling through the use of his materials. In homage to Burri, I began incorporating burlap as a collage element in my work. When I returned from my residency, I continued working and experimenting with burlap and other textural materials as a way to create interest. I was aware of my attraction to the texture, but I wasn't satisfied with how the paint and the burlap looked together. It never felt completely integrated. Still searching for answers, I applied to and was accepted into a critical discussion group led by Bill Porteous and Cheryl Taves. Our high-level discussions challenged my use of burlap and my attraction to it. One particularly frustrating afternoon, I cut up some larger pieces of burlap and sewed them back together, taking the textile out of its supporting role and making it the main character. It was an aha moment to realize that I didn't want to add paint, because paint covered everything I found to be so beautiful about the material. I felt like I had found my way back to my roots and to my love of fiber. As my textile work developed, it became clear that I had an emotional connection to burlap. I loved everything about it, the weaves, the smell, its touch. Childhood memories began to surface, along with the recollections of my family history. Both of my parents grew up during the Great Depression, and while I had a comfortable childhood, I was always aware of the challenges my grandparents faced and the experiences of my parents growing up. Both of my grandmothers were widowed at a young age, yet each successfully raised 4 children alone. One of my grandmothers worked in a factory for 35 cents an hour. She was always mending at the kitchen table, and although I knew she loved me, she was also as tough as nails. Nothing was wasted or thrown away. Instead, it was handed down. During the summertime, my father worked on a farm. One time we visited there, and I distinctly remember the smell of the barn and the sight of burlap bags filled with potatoes. Life for them was difficult and physical. Everyone did the best they could and made the best of what they had. Although there were hard times and suffering, there was also love. And in the end, they not only survived, but they flourished. I started having other insights about my attraction to burlap. It wasn't just the beauty of its physical characteristics and its manipulative properties, but it also carried with it a feeling of humble strength and durability. This was the perfect material for me to use to express what I knew about resiliency and the human spirit. I've been a practitioner of Nichiren Buddhism for over 20 years, and as such, I was well aware of the human hand involved with the production of burlap. It's made in different areas all over the world. The harvesting and weaving of the raw materials into finished product is hard work, and each piece carries unique characteristics of its origin. For me, the diversity of these materials represents the beauty of diversity in the world. My work never begins with an ending in mind. It's always an abstract process of experimentation and discovery with the materials. It's only when the work is finished that its meaning is revealed to me. Oftentimes I find it is a commentary or reference to the world and current events. Some of the most inspiring and influential artists for me are Alberto Burri, Magdalena Abakanowicz, Anselm Kiefer, and Ibrahim Mahama. All of these artists are masters of materiality, and they exude a certain raw strength in their work. I admire their ability to work in large scale, but most of all I'm drawn to the fact that they are able to comment on the human condition in a way that touches the viewer and evokes an emotional response. In my studio right now, I have a few different things going on. For the new year and something different, I've just started to play with using encaustic wax on some of my other pieces. I'm intrigued with how the wax integrates with the textiles, and it promises to be a good way to fuse together very fragile materials. My other new adventure is creating assemblage sculptures made from old, repurposed sporting trophies. I'm incorporating my usual materials of burlap, gauze, and stitching, but I'm adding rusted chains, nails, barbed wire, and other odd bits. Both of these new endeavors are just in the beginning phase of development, but they do fulfill my desire to continue to open up to new ideas and processes. The most important work I'm doing right now is in preparation for a spring exhibition. I was delighted when the curators of the show asked me to present work from an ongoing series called The Treasure Towers. This series is based on a Buddhist teaching that, in summary, states that all human beings have a treasure within them. Independent of their status, circumstance, or human weakness, a person can polish their treasure, which will allow them to shine brightly and ascend to their highest human potential. Although the towers look very different from each other, they are all constructed using the same materials. In this sense, they are all different, yet they are the same, very much like people. Up until this point in time, the treasure towers have been designed to be exhibited hanging against the wall. They're approximately 2 feet wide and 6 foot tall. For this upcoming exhibition, I have the possibility to hang some of them from the ceiling so that they can suspend in space. The viewer will then be able to view the work from both sides. It's both exciting and challenging to add this new dimension to my work. Aside from securing financial stability, I think the biggest challenge of being an artist is finding a way to make work that is genuine and not dictated or influenced by the marketplace. We are constantly bombarded by outside opinion and discourse. It's not easy. It takes hard work and tenacity to find authentic expression, and it's not for the faint of heart. The advice I would give to my younger artist self is to not be afraid of failure. Failure is a necessary part of the equation. You have to let yourself fail over and over in order to learn, develop, and perfect your craft. Allow yourself to fail and just keep going. Don't waste your time worrying and judging whether your work is good or bad, or whether it will be accepted or understood. Just keep going. Develop an awareness of the process and learn to enjoy it. Eventually, you will find your way. Lately, when I'm working in the studio, I prefer to work in silence, especially if I'm in the creative phase or beginning a new piece. Silence gives me the mental space to reflect on what is happening in the work and how I'm feeling about it. However, when I'm working in a construction mode, I do enjoy my music. My playlist is quite eclectic and can include anything: African beats, French pop, folk music, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and even an occasional opera. If I'm listening to music, I like to keep things upbeat with intriguing vibes. The best reaction to my work is when someone tells me how it has touched them on a personal level. Hearing that my work has evoked a particular feeling or stirred a cherished memory is a shared connection that is so gratifying. It affirms my belief in the magical power of art that can weave a connection between the artist and the viewer. I hope that when someone encounters my work, they will walk away with an appreciation for their own life experiences, both good and bad. I would like them to understand that when they struggle, they are not alone. We all experience life's challenges, but these are precisely the moments that can allow us to discover our own true strength. It's our opportunity to discover the beauty that lies within the broken.